All right, so in this video, we're going to go through the panels, right? So let's start with the camera panel, or the camera view, I believe Harmony likes to call it. So in this view, you're going to be able to see all of your elements in the scene, your background, your character, as you can see here, the animation that you make on the character, text, effects, all that good stuff, right? So if I click here and press play, which would be the timeline view, right? Press play, you can see this animation that I did. The design is not mine, as you can see. Let's play that again. Okay, so what we're looking through right now is actually not how the final product is going to look. It looks nice, but you can see here if I zoom in, press 2, the shadow is all separated into pieces. So if I click the blue flower here, just hover, render view, all right? Oops, I got touch on. The camera view and drawing views both support touch gestures. I'm using an Intuos Pro right now. So where was I? Right. So if you click the render view, you'll notice a gray border comes around so you can focus on what is being rendered. It takes a second and bam, beautiful. This is not what we were looking at just now. And that is simply because the render view shows you how your scene is going to look when you export it. Oops, right? Final output quality with all the effects and stuff. So you can't play when you're in this mode, which is unfortunate, but that is the way it is because Harmony has to figure out where the shadows are going, compiling all that, smoothing it out, adding all these nice things. Obviously, it doesn't do that by default. I created this lighting, but that is a more advanced tutorial. Right, so you're going to see here the timeline at the bottom, the keyframes. Let me just hide my cheat. And in the camera view, for now, this is basically all we need to know. You can click your elements and use the transform tool here and move them around. We can come up here to the head, rotate it, animate, right? What the software was made for. So let's move on to the drawing panel, our drawing view. All right. And before we do that, I'm going to click the ear just so we have something to focus on. All right. Now, everything disappeared. Why is that? They didn't actually disappear. What happened is we clicked the ear, so we're focusing on that drawing, right? This is the drawing view. So let me just click this light bulb. If we hover, you can see it says show light table. Click that. And if I zoom in here a bit, you'll see we can see kind of all of the lines in the scene. And this is because the light table is like, those old school, well, people still use them now, but how you would have a light projecting underneath what you're drawing so you can see everything else. That's basically what's happening here. So it's useful for tracing and stuff, which we'll go through in the drawing tools video. Let's choose a drawing tool here, select. So in this view, let me just turn that off. In this view, you'll be able to see your line art, color art, and other overlay. I have the earring there, underlay, different layers that you can put artwork on, which still live in the same singular drawing, the ear. Now that might be a little much to take in, but it will make more sense later. And lastly, before I move on, I like this view because it separates the animation from the actual art. So as you can see here, if I scrub the timeline, which is click and drag, the ear is going all over the place, right? Because it's animated. if I transform tool, if I click that and go here and scrub, it isn't. It's because the drawing view shows you the drawing before the animation, are not really before, but kind of the drawing for what it is, right? No animation, no BS, just the drawing. And this is sometimes very important when you have a lot going on, a lot of parts, and you need to focus and make a change, right? Then that change is applied for the entire scene. So let's move on to the tool properties. And I'll just say this. The tool properties, while it is a panel, I kind of like to look at it as a toolbar in disguise, because when you click it, it shows the tool options for whatever tool you have selected, which is technically a toolbar. So if I have something else selected here, it's going to show up. If I have something else here, it's going to show up. It's going to change. So it's kind of a toolbar in disguise, and it houses the relevant tools to the relevant properties, sorry, to the tool you have selected. So that's more relevant in the, well, I guess every other video. Okay, so library. Now, the library. So you see 3 default folders here, and these don't mean the same thing. So basically the 3D models folder here, it houses 3D models that are in your scene, all right? And the symbols folder basically holds the, well, symbols of the scene. If you're a Flash user, you might be familiar with how they generally work. If not, symbols are basically, like a proxy or an instance that hold multiple elements within one place. And as long as you edit the elements inside, all the other symbols you've used would update themselves. So anyway, so this, however, the reason why this is different is because this is an actual location on your computer. So if I go to documents, let's bring this over here. So you can see, I don't want to hide her face. So you can see here, documents, Toon Boom Harmony Premium Library. It's empty, but it is a real place on your computer. It has nothing to do with the scene. It is a location and your connection to the outside world. But yeah, is a real place. And the reason why this is important is because we can add more places. So if we right click here, we can click Open Library. Now we're getting somewhere. So this is going to allow you to add more than one location as a link inside of Harmony. So if I go to pictures, right, and I click this, right, unfortunately you can't, drag and click like multiple locations at once. Possible feature, Toon Boom. Yeah, so click this, click select folder, and it shows up here, right? So if I click this, you can see I have 6 pictures. Now, if I find that location, let's go to pictures, boom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pictures, right? It is a real place. So it connects you to places on your hard drive or network if you're working on a network using Harmony database version. And the reason why this is so useful is because I can click any of these. Let's do this. Click this and I can literally drag it into my scene. Now the reason we can't see it is because if you look here to the right, it is going to to the last position on the composite. What that basically means is it is behind everything. So if we click this and drag it to the left, it shows up. Yay! So let's just drag that behind our rig here, right? So you can see, go back to the transform tool. So you can see here, we just imported that in seconds. And this was a real picture on our hard drive. So imagine if you use this to trace your artwork. Could bring this in and bring this here. And it supports transparency. So as you can see, it comes in here. It doesn't look pretty right now. But that's because we dragged it in. Sometimes you can also click this here, file, go to import images. And this gives you more control over how the image comes into your scene, right? You kind of don't need to care about that most of the time. In this case, Harmony is just trying to embarrass me. So, okay, so let's delete 2 of these. Okay. And before I close this library, I will say that Harmony supports a ridiculous amount of file types. You can see we have a JPEG here. We have a PNG. It supports TIFF, Targa. I mean, name it and it probably supports it. I have never actually came across an image format that I could not import. So unless it was like a, you know, very, very, very specific software or something, but it supports Photoshop files, Illustrator files, PDFs, etc., right? And if we go here to file, import, you can see it also supports 3D models. And in this case, it means FBX and I believe OBJ as well. I've tested it with FBX myself, so that works for sure. And you can import sound and, as I said, Illustrator files. So instead of showing you all of that, I will just show you how to close a library, right? So if we right click here, you can see closed library. Now when we do that, boom, it disappears, right? And it's not just for this scene. When we save and close, if we open any other scene in this version of Harmony, which is 20, this is how it's going to look. So that is very useful when you're working on, like, you know, multiple scenes and you don't want to open the library over and over and over again. So, you know, that's pretty legit. Next up is the color panel. So we go here to the right, click color, and you'll see here, well, a whole mess, right? But basically you have one section for palettes and the other section for colors. So if I drag this up here a bit, you can see I have Callie head rig. That is what this is. Her name is Callie. Oops, forgot to mention that. So this is a palette. And what that basically means is it houses colors, right? So it houses a collection of colors. You can look at it as a folder, I guess, or folder is kind of lame, but are, you know, like a real life palette that you hold in your hand with all the colors in it, right? So this is important for organization and obviously for different characters, different objects, different props in a scene. You would want individual palettes, right? You don't want one huge palette called scene 4 and you know, like a million colors in there for all the characters. That's horrible organization, right? So you usually have a palette per character, right? And they carry it around wherever they go. So as the color panel, over to the node view. Now, I can't go into like the full detail of this because this gets very complicated very quickly. So let me just make some room, click and drag, and you can adjust the size of the panels here with the bar going through the divisions, right? You can click this to hide and show each panel, right? So let's just hide that. So you can see here that I have some things. These are called nodes, right? They're different types of nodes, and each drawing in your scene is going to be represented as a node here. Let me just overwhelm you for a second. This is the rig. Okay, it's not as scary as I wanted it to be, but yeah, this is the rig. So you can see here a whole bunch of drawings, the nose, the mouth, the jaw, etc. Right? Let's go back out of that rig. Yeah, out of that group. So the node view is basically a visual representation of the layers, effects, and all the other things that make up your scene, right? It's a visual representation. And the reason why this is important is because you can easily see how things relate to each other. It isn't necessary to have a whole lot of knowledge about this for animation itself, but it is extremely important for rigging and character and scene setup, right? And I always say a great animator knows how a rig works, which means they also know what is going on in the node view, right? Okay. Quickly at the bottom, you can see here the node library. Let's click this quickly. So you can see these things here. So I just talked about nodes, and this is where they live. So if I click and drag this into the node view, the transparency, you'll see this show up, transparency. This is a transparency node. So I can plug this in here and then plug it into the composite, and you can see it got faded out. Well, I mean, it's transparency, so that's what it's supposed to do. And this is just one node. Okay, if we click this, or in earlier versions of Harmony, I believe there's something called all, show all. You can see all of these different nodes, so many. We'll go through some of these as we go in this beginner course, I guess. But we sure as hell ain't going through all these right now. So let's go over to the timeline. So press Shift M in the camera view, reset. Let's hide my cheat. All right. So timeline, pretty straightforward, pretty self-explanatory. Well, maybe not so much, but this is where you can see your keyframes and animation, right? You have your tools over here. You can play and pause. You can scrub. Okay, good. You can scrub and see how your animation is going. You can control when things happen, right? Click this and move it down here. So timeline is where you hold the power, right? That does not look good anymore. Undo that. So that is the overview of the panels in Harmony. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.